Fear is one of the most powerful forces that can hold a person back. Yet it is also one of the most deceptive. It never comes to you openly declaring that it has come to destroy your dreams. It doesn't walk into your life waving a banner that says, "I am here to stop you." Instead, it approaches quietly, almost politely, whispering reasons why I shouldn't take the next step. It uses soft words, disguised as caution or concern, and convinces you that holding back is the safest path. But what fear is really doing in those moments is stealing your destiny before you ever even start walking toward it. Fear is a thief, and its favorite thing to steal is your potential. It doesn't always take away the things you already have. It's more dangerous than that. It takes away the things you could have had, the opportunities that would have been yours if you had only stepped forward in courage. And the most tragic part is that you don't always know what you've lost, because you never gave yourself the chance to reach for it. Every dream you carry within you is like a seed, full of potential to grow into something incredible. But fear acts like the drought that keeps that seed from getting the water it needs. You may have all the talent, all the vision, all the resources, but if fear convinces you to bury your dreams too deep, nothing will grow. Fear knows. It doesn't have to destroy you outright. It just has to keep you from trying. That's why its voice is so persuasive. It tells you stories of what could go wrong. It paints pictures in your mind of the worst possible outcomes. It plays the "what if" game so skillfully that you start to believe its lies. And here's the truth: most of the things you fear will never happen. Studies have shown that the vast majority of our fears are simply our imagination running wild, building scenarios that never become reality. But while the events you fear may never come to pass, the regret of never trying is very real and will stay with you far longer. Regret is one of the most painful emotions a human can carry, because it is the one thing you cannot go back and change. You can't return to yesterday and take the opportunity you turned down. You can't go back in time and start that business when you had the chance, or tell that person you loved them before it was too late, or step into that role you were offered before someone else took it. Fear pretends to protect you from failure, but what it really does is protect you from growth, from achievement, from living a life that is full and meaningful. You see, your destiny is not something that happens automatically. It is shaped by the decisions you make, the risks you display. When the fear tries to stop you, every time you obey fear, you hand over a piece of your destiny. There is a subtle danger in getting comfortable with fear. The first time you give in, it feels like relief. You avoided something that made you anxious. But the more you allow fear to control your actions, the more it becomes your default response. You begin to live in a smaller and smaller world, not because the world is shrinking, but because fear is convincing you to stay inside the boundaries it sets for you. Those boundaries aren't real. They're imaginary lines you've agreed to stay within because fear told you it was safer. But safety without growth is just a cage. You may be alive, but you're not truly living. Fear thrives in inaction. When you stand still, fear grows louder. It gains strength from hesitation. That's why moments of decision are so critical. The instant you feel fear trying to stop you, you have a choice to step forward in courage or shrink back into comfort. The more you step forward, the weaker fear becomes. The more you shrink back, the stronger it grows. It's a simple equation. Yet so many people live their entire lives without realizing they've been feeding fear for years. One of the greatest lies fear tells is that you must feel ready before you act. But readiness is an illusion. If you wait until every condition is perfect, until you have all the answers, until you feel no uncertainty at all, you will wait forever. Fear will make sure of it, Life was never designed to be lived without risk. Every great achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of transformation comes with a degree of uncertainty. The people who accomplish extraordinary things are not those who have never felt fear. They are the ones who refuse to let fear decide for them. Think about the opportunities you have let pass by because fear told you weren't good enough, smart enough, prepared enough. Think about the moments you wanted to speak up but stayed silent. Rejection. Think about the times you wanted to take the leap but stood on the edge, convincing yourself you would do it next time. How many of those next times have actually come? Fear loves the word later, because later usually means never. It feeds on your procrastination until years pass, and you're left wondering why your life looks nothing like the one you once dreamed of. The truth is, you were created with the ability to overcome fear. Every single person has within them a reservoir of strength, courage, and resilience they often don't discover until they are forced to. But fear wants you to believe you are powerless, that you are fragile, that you can't handle the unknown. It wants you to forget every challenge you've already overcome, every obstacle you've already faced and conquered. It wants to erase your victories from memory, so that you only see your limitations, not your capabilities. But deep inside you, there is proof. Proof that you have been stronger than you thought, braver than you imagined, and more capable than fear would ever admit. When you look back over your life, you will see moments where you acted despite fear. Those are the moments that shaped you, the ones that built your confidence and expanded your world. Fear may have been present, but it was not in control. And that's the secret. Fear only has as much power as you give it. If you stop feeding it with your attention, your agreement, and your obedience, it will wither. But as long as you listen to it, it will keep whispering. And those whispers will keep you small. If you truly want to protect your destiny, you must learn to recognize fear for what it is. Not a guardian keeping you safe, but a thief trying to rob you of your future. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot make peace with it. You must confront it and decide, once and for all, that it will not be the one making the decisions for your life. Every time you take a step forward in the face of fear, you reclaim a piece of your destiny. You remind yourself that your life is too valuable to be controlled by an emotion that lies to you. You prove that fear not get to decide how far you go or how high you rise. And you open the door to possibilities that fear never wanted you to see. Courage is often misunderstood as the absence of fear, as if the people we admire for their boldness simply never feel afraid. But the truth is, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act in spite of it. The difference between those who move forward in life and those who remain stuck is rarely that one group feels fear and the other doesn't. It is that one group chooses not to let fear dictate their actions. Courage is a choice, a deliberate act of the will, and it must be exercised if it is to grow stronger. It is like a muscle that gains strength only through use. And every time you act courageously, you build the capacity to face greater challenges ahead. Many people wait for courage to show up fully formed before they take action, as if it will arrive like a sudden rush of confidence that erases all doubt. But courage rarely feels that way in the moment. More often, it is a quiet, trembling decision made in the middle of uncertainty. Your heart may still be pounding, your hands may still be shaking, and your mind may still be screaming 100 reasons why you should not proceed. And yet, courage steps forward anyway. It does not wait for the fear to disappear. It decides that the fear will not have the final say. The greatest victories in life are won by those who made decisions under the weight of fear, but refused to obey it. Every breakthrough in history, every remarkable achievement, Every story that inspires us began with someone who faced the same doubts and anxieties we all feel, but chose to act anyway. They understood that courage, a feeling that visits you when the conditions are perfect. It is a discipline you choose to live by. It is the refusal to let fear write your story. Courage also has a compounding effect. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes to choose it again. The first time you speak up for yourself, when fear tells you to stay silent, it may feel like the hardest thing in the world. But once you have done it, you discover that you survived. You realize that you are stronger than you thought. That experience becomes a reference point for the next time fear tries to silence you. You remember that you have faced it before and prevailed, and that memory fuels your courage for the next challenge. In this way, courage builds upon itself, creating a momentum that can carry you further than you ever imagined. But courage is not just about bold, dramatic acts. Sometimes it is found in the small, daily choices that shape your character and your destiny. It is in choosing to confront a difficult truth instead of avoiding it. It is in taking responsibility for your actions when it would be easier to shift the blame. It is in daring to hope when everything around you tells you to give up. Courage can be as simple as showing up for another day when you feel like quitting. It can be as humble as trying again after a failure that left you wounded. These acts may not make headlines, but they transform you from the inside out, and over time they produce a strength that fear cannot match. One of the most powerful things about courage is that it exposes fear's weakness. Fear thrives in secrecy and inaction. As long as you avoid the thing you fear, it grows in your mind, becoming larger and more intimidating. But the moment you take a step toward it, something changes. You see that it is not as big as it seemed. You realize that most of its power came from the story you told yourself about it, not from the reality of it. Fear loses its grip the moment you face it, because it cannot withstand the light of action. Courage also inspires others. When you choose to act bravely, you give permission for those around you to do the same. People watch you stand your ground. Take the risk, speak the truth, and they begin to believe they can do it too. Courage is contagious. It spreads through communities, families, teams, and nations, awakening strength in people who might never have discovered it otherwise. Your decision to be courageous could be the spark that ignites someone else's transformation. It is important to understand that courage does not guarantee an easy path. In fact, choosing courage often means walking into situations where the outcome is uncertain and the stakes are high. You may still experience failure. You may still face criticism. You may still encounter obstacles that seem insurmountable. But courage changes the way you experience those challenges. Instead of seeing them as proof that you should have stayed safe, you see them as part of the process of growth. You understand that even when you lose, you gain something valuable: wisdom, resilience, and the knowledge that you dare to try. There is a deep sense of freedom that comes with living courageously. Fear is like a chain that keeps you tethered to a small, controlled space, while courage is the key that unlocks it. Once you begin to live beyond the limits fear has set for you, you taste a kind of life that is richer and fuller. You find yourself saying yes to opportunities that once intimidated you. You discover talents you didn't know you had. You build relationships you might never have dared to pursue. You begin to see life not as something to survive, but as something to explore and embrace. Courage also changes your relationship with yourself. Every time you act bravely, you build trust in your own ability to handle what comes. You stop underestimating yourself. You stop believing the narrative that you are too weak, too inexperienced, or too unprepared. You begin to see yourself as capable, resourceful, and strong. This shift in identity is powerful. Because the way you see yourself determines the risks you are willing to take and the challenges you are willing to face. In the end, courage is the weapon that dismantles fear's control over your life. It is not something reserved for a select few. It is available to anyone willing to choose it. You do not have to feel fearless to be courageous. You simply have to decide that your dreams, your purpose, and your destiny are worth more than your comfort. And when that decision becomes a daily practice, fear loses its power, opportunities begin to open, and your life begins to expand beyond anything you once thought possible. The mind is the central battleground where every victory or defeat in life is first decided. Before anything takes shape in your actions, it begins in your thoughts. Fear does not need to physically restrain you to stop you from moving forward. All it has to do is plant a seed in your mind and water it with doubt until it grows into something that overshadows your vision. This is why people can have every resource, every opportunity, and every open door in front of them, yet remain stuck, because mentally, they have already surrendered before they even try. The condition of your mind will always determine the condition of your life. If you allow fear to dominate your thinking, it will dominate your future. Every great achievement starts with a picture in the mind, a picture of what could be. But fear works by distorting that picture. Instead of seeing the possibility, it magnifies the potential for failure. Instead of envisioning success, it floods your imagination with images of loss, embarrassment, or disappointment. It is relentless in its effort to make you believe that the risk is greater than the reward. And the mind, if left unguarded, will accept this as truth. Once your mind believes something is too dangerous, too risky, or too impossible, your body will follow its lead without resistance. You don't even have to consciously decide to quit. Your mind has already done it for you. The thoughts you entertain shape the emotions you feel, and those emotions drive the actions you take. If your mind is filled with fear, your emotions will mirror that with anxiety, hesitation, and a desire to retreat. But if your mind is filled with confidence, hope, and possibility, your emotions will reflect boldness, energy, and readiness to act. This is why it is crucial to take control of your thinking. Because your thoughts are not just private ideas floating in your head. They are the blueprint for the life you are building. Fear thrives in a mind that is left unattended. If you do not deliberately choose what you think about, fear will choose for you. It will replay past failures on repeat, reminding you of the times you fell short. It will project those failures in the future, convincing the history will always repeat itself. It will twist your strengths into weaknesses and make you believe that what you have to offer is not enough. It knows that if it can keep your mental vision small, your physical reality will follow suit. Training your mind to reject fear is not something that happens overnight. It is a discipline. You have to challenge every fearful thought with truth. When fear tells you that you can't do something, you must remind yourself of the times you have already done things you once thought were impossible. When fear says the risk is too high, you must ask yourself whether the risk of doing nothing is even greater. This kind of mental training takes effort, but it is the foundation for breaking fear's control over your life. One of the most powerful ways to win the battle in your mind is to focus on possibilities rather than problems. Fear wants your attention fixed on everything that could go wrong. The loss, the rejection, the humiliation. But possibility shifts your attention to what could go right. The breakthrough, the growth, the reward. This doesn't mean you ignore reality or pretend there are no challenges. It means you choose to anchor your thoughts on hope instead of despair. Your focus determines your direction, and your direction determines your destination. It is important to understand that your mind is not naturally wired to seek out courage. It is wired to seek out safety. This instinct for self preservation was useful in moments of real physical danger, but in modern life, it often works against you. Your mind will sometimes interpret change, risk, or stepping into the unknown as danger, even if it is the very thing you need to grow. This is why you must consciously override your instinct to retreat when opportunities arise. You must teach your mind that discomfort is not the same as danger, and that fear does not mean you are incapable. Your mind can either be your greatest ally or your most destructive enemy. When it is aligned with faith, vision, and determination, it becomes a fortress, a place where fear's arrows cannot penetrate. But when it is left unguarded, it becomes a prison, trapping you within the limits fear sets for you. The choice of what it will be is yours. You cannot control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you allow to stay. Winning the battle in your mind also requires surrounding yourself with the right voices. The environment you expose your mind to will influence the thoughts you think. If you constantly feed your mind with negativity, criticism, and fear-based conversations, it will be nearly impossible to maintain courage. But if you fill your environment with encouragement, inspiration, and examples of victory, your mind will begin to believe that courage is possible and that fear can be defeated. Your internal dialogue is another critical factor. The way you talk to yourself can either empower you or weaken you. Many people lose the battle in their mind because they speak defeat over themselves before they even start. They call themselves failures, tell themselves they're not ready, or convince themselves that others are more deserving. But when you change that dialogue, when you speak to yourself with confidence, when you affirm your ability, when you declare that you will rise to the challenge, you shift the mental atmosphere in which fear operates. Fear cannot thrive in an environment filled with words of power and determination. When you control your mind, you control your life. This is not about pretending fear doesn't exist. It is about refusing to let it set the course for your future. Every time you replace a fearful thought with one that is grounded in truth and possibility, you take back ground that fear has stolen. You rewire your thinking so that courage becomes your default, not your exception. And as your thinking changes, so will your actions, your results, and ultimately, the trajectory of your life. Fear is not always obvious. It does not always appear as panic or terror. In fact, one of its most effective strategies is to disguise itself as caution, wisdom, or practicality. It knows that if it comes to you looking like fear, you might recognize it and push it away. But if it dresses itself up as something reasonable, something logical, something that even sounds like good advice, you are far more likely to accept it. This is why so many people never realize that fear is the reason they have not moved forward. They believe they are simply being smart, waiting for the right time, or protecting themselves from unnecessary risk. Yet behind those carefully crafted justifications, fear is quietly winning. The line between wisdom and fear can be thin, and without self-awareness, it's easy to confuse the two. Wisdom is forward-looking. It sees the potential challenges ahead, but prepares for them while still moving toward the goal. Fear, on the other hand, uses those challenges as reasons to stand still. Wisdom calculates risks with the intention of finding solutions. Fear calculates risks to convince you to abandon the idea entirely. Wisdom makes adjustments. Fear makes excuses. One is active, the other is passive. One builds confidence. The other builds hesitation. This disguise makes fear especially dangerous because it allows you to believe you are doing the right thing. You feel justified in your inaction. You tell yourself that it's not the right season, that you need more information, that you're just waiting for confirmation. You convince yourself that your delay is noble, responsible, or even humble. But if you are honest, deep down you know that you are not waiting for the right time. You are avoiding the moment altogether. You are not gathering information. You are gathering excuses. You are not seeking confirmation. You are hoping for a reason to quit without feeling guilty about it. Fear in disguise can be subtle. It can sound like the meaning advice of a friend who tells you not to aim to get high because they don't want you to get hurt. It can sound like your own inner voice warning you not to take on too much because you don't want to fail. It can sound like culture's endless stream of messages telling you to play it safe, avoid risks, and stick with what you know. The danger is that all of these voices can sound sensible on the surface, but underneath, they are working to keep you from stretching beyond your current limits. One of the clearest signs that fear is hiding behind caution is when your waiting becomes indefinite. Preparation has a purpose and a timeline. If you're getting ready for years without taking any meaningful action, it's not preparation anymore. It's paralysis. There is no amount of planning that can remove all uncertainty from a decision. There is no such thing as a perfect time, when all conditions are ideal. Waiting for that moment is a form of self-deception, and fear is the author of it. Fear in disguise also makes you overthink everything. Instead of making a decision and moving forward, you run endless scenarios in your mind. You imagine every possible way things could go wrong. You analyze the situation until you have talked yourself out of it completely. Overthinking is not wisdom. It is often fear masquerading as analysis. The longer you stay in this cycle, the more convincing fear's voice becomes. It starts to feel like you are protecting yourself, when in reality, you are shrinking your possibilities. This kind of fear is particularly dangerous for people who see themselves as careful planners or strategic thinkers because it uses their strengths against them. Being strategic is a valuable skill, but when fear takes control, it turns strategy into stalling. It convinces you that one more week of research, one more conversation, one more piece of information will finally give you the certainty you need. But certainty never comes in the form you are waiting for. You cannot think your way into a completely risk-free decision. At some point, you must move forward despite the unknowns. To break free from fear in disguise, you must be brutally honest with yourself. You have to ask hard questions. Am I really being wise? Or am I avoiding action because I am afraid of the outcome? Am I genuinely preparing? Or am I endlessly delaying because I don't want to face the possibility of failure? Am I making this decision from a place of confidence or from a place of fear? These questions require honesty, and honesty can be uncomfortable. But without it, fear will keep winning without you even realizing it. It's also important to remember that wisdom and courage are not opposites. They work together. True wisdom doesn't tell you to stay still forever. It tells you how to move forward with strength. It gives you strategies, boundaries, and insight so that you can act boldly while minimizing unnecessary risks. Wisdom tells you to wait indefinitely. It tells you that acting is dangerous and that staying put is the best option. One empowers you to live. The other traps you in stagnation. Fear disguised as caution will always make believe that you are not ready. It will focus on what you lack instead of what you have. It will convince you that other people are more qualified, more prepared, or more deserving of success than you are. It will make you feel like you must first become perfect before you can even try. But perfection is an impossible standard, and fear knows it. It sets that bar so high that you will never reach it, ensuring you remain stuck exactly where you are. If you want to see fear for what it really is, you must examine the fruit of your decisions. Wisdom produces progress, growth, and results over time. Fear produces delay, regret, and missed opportunities. Wisdom strengthens you. Fear weakens you. Wisdom opens doors. Fear closes them. When you look honestly at the outcomes of your choices, you can often tell whether it was fear or wisdom that guided them. Fear's disguise is clever, but it cannot hold up under the light of truth. Once you see it clearly, you realize that it has been stealing from you in slow, subtle ways. It has taken years of your life, opportunities you may never get back, and experiences you might have cherished. The longer you allow it to masquerade as caution, the smaller your life becomes. But the moment you expose it, you take back the power it has over you. You begin to understand that true safety is not found in avoiding every risk, but in trusting yourself to navigate challenges as they come. And when you learn to see the difference between wise preparation and fear-driven hesitation, you set yourself free from the quiet grip that has held you back for so long. Fear and faith cannot share the same space in your heart and mind. One will always push the other out. They are opposing forces that lead your life in completely different directions. Fear looks at the same situation that faith sees, but they come to opposite conclusions. Fear says, "It's too risky, you can't do it, you're not enough." Faith says, "It's possible, you can handle it, you have what it takes." Fear focuses on obstacles. Faith focuses on outcomes. Fear builds walls, faith builds bridges. Fear freezes you in place. Faith moves you forward, even when the path is unclear. Both fear and faith require belief. The difference is what you choose to believe in. Fear is belief in a negative future, a conviction that things will go wrong, that failure is inevitable, that pain is certain. Faith is belief in a positive future, a conviction that you will overcome, that success is possible, that even if you face hardship, you will come out stronger. In both cases, the future hasn't happened yet. You are operating on a prediction. The question is, whose prediction will you trust? The one that limits you, or the one that liberates you? Faith doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending challenges don't exist. It means acknowledging the challenges, but choosing to see them through the lens of possibility. Where fear sees the storm and declares that you will sink, faith sees the storm and declares that you will arrive. The circumstances may be the same, but the perspective changes everything. Faith gives you the courage to take the first step, even when you can't see the entire road ahead. Fear demands certainty before you move, but faith moves first and lets certainty develop along the way. Living with faith doesn't mean you will never feel fear. Fear will still knock on the door of your mind. It will still whisper doubts and try to plant seeds of worry. But when faith is strong, fear's voice becomes smaller, weaker, easier to ignore. Faith acts as a filter, refusing to let every fearful thought take root. It reminds you of what is possible, of the strength you have built over the years, of the victories you have already won. It tells you that you have faced uncertainty before and survived, that you have been through storms before and still made it to the other side. One of the most powerful truths about faith is that it grows with use. Just like fear becomes stronger the more you give into it, faith becomes stronger the more you choose it. Every time you act in faith, you prove to yourself that fear was wrong. You build evidence in your own life that you can handle more than you thought. That evidence becomes a shield the next time fear tries to stop you. The moment you start trusting yourself to face the unknown, you break the pattern of hesitation that fear thrives on. Faith also requires focus. Fear loves distraction. It pulls your attention to everything that could go wrong and magnifies it until it's all you can see. Faith focuses on the bigger picture. It doesn't deny the possibility of difficulty, but it refuses to dwell on it. Instead, it chooses to dwell on the possibility of success, the vision of what could be if you press forward. The direction of your focus will always influence the direction of your life. Whatever you stare at will grow in your mind. If you keep your eyes on the problems, they will appear larger. If you keep your eyes on the goal, the problems will seem smaller in comparison. Another thing that separates fear and faith is the way they shape your decisions. Fear makes decisions to avoid loss. Faith makes decisions to create gain. Fear asks, what will happen if I try and fail? Faith asks, what will happen if I try and succeed? Fear is reactive. Faith is proactive. Fear makes you cling to what you have. Faith makes you reach for more. And over time, those different choices create entirely different lives. A life led by fear is small, predictable, and safe. But it is also unfulfilled. A life led by faith may be uncertain and challenging at times, but it is rich with growth, purpose, and moments you would never experience otherwise. Faith is also tied to identity. How you see yourself determines how you respond to challenges. If you see yourself as weak, unworthy, or unprepared, fear will always have an easy way in. But if you see yourself as capable, valuable, and resourceful, fear has a much harder time convincing you to stop. Faith reinforces a strong identity. It reminds you that you are equipped for what lies ahead, even if you don't feel it in the moment. It gives you permission to act boldly because you trust that you can adapt and learn along the way. When you live with faith, you also inspire others. Just as fear is contagious, so is faith. When people see you stepping forward in courage, even in the face of uncertainty, it gives them the confidence to do the same. Your actions become a silent testimony that it is possible to live beyond the reach of fear. Without saying a word, you show them that there is another way to approach life. One where possibility is bigger than limitation, and hope is stronger than doubt. Faith and fear both shape your future, but they do it in opposite ways. Fear closes doors before you can walk through them. It talks you out of opportunities before you can even try. Faith opens doors that you didn't even know existed, because it keeps you moving forward long enough to find them. Fear says, stop. You're not ready. Faith says, go, and you will be ready as you go. Fear says, you can't handle it. Faith says, you will handle it when it comes. Fear says, you are alone. Faith says, you are never alone. It's not that people of faith never experience setbacks. They do. They face disappointment, loss, and moments of doubt. The difference is that they don't let those moments define them. They see them as part of the journey, not the end of it. Faith gives you resilience, the ability to get back up when you've been knocked. Keep moving when the path is steep. To keep believing when there is no visible sign of progress. That resilience is what keeps you moving long enough to eventually see the reward. Ultimately, the choice between fear and faith is one you make daily. It's not a one-time decision. It's a repeated action. Every challenge, every opportunity, every fork in the road is an invitation to choose which voice you will listen to. You can let fear's voice dictate your path, or you can let faith's voice lead you into the unknown with confidence. The life you live tomorrow will be shaped by the choice you make today. Whether to believe in the limits fear presents, or to believe in the possibilities faith reveals. In the end, everything comes down to the choices we make with the time and opportunities we are given. Life will always present both challenges and possibilities, both fear and faith, both setbacks and breakthroughs. We cannot always control what comes our way, but we can always control how we respond. The principles we've explored are not just motivational ideas. They are practical tools for building a life of strength, purpose, and fulfillment. It is about understanding your value, embracing growth, protecting your mind, walking in discipline, and choosing faith over fear. Each of these elements feeds into the others, creating a cycle of empowerment, that propels you forward. The more you commit to living by them, the more they become part of your character, and the more they shape your destiny. The difference between an average life and an extraordinary one is not luck or talent alone. It is the consistent application of these truths, even when it's difficult, even when no one is watching, and even when the results are not immediate. Greatness is not a moment, it's a process, and every decision you make either moves you closer to it or pulls you further away from it. The life you desire is built in the daily choices to act with courage, discipline, and belief in the possibilities that lie ahead. Knowing that each step forward is a step toward becoming the person you were created to be,